First thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the meeting of October 21st, 2020. I think you've had a chance to review those. Is there any corrections, additions?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as they were presented from the October 21st meeting.
Okay, I have a motion from Nancy.
I'll second it.
I have a second from Kevin. Any further discussion on it? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay. My normal procedure tonight will be to do a roll call vote in the case of the adoption of the minutes, since there was no opposition to it. My first mistake, I didn't do a roll call. The next thing, I want to open up a public hearing for the Kimball abatement, Kimball Furniture Group. And this was published in the Herald on November 6th, 2020. Anyone from the public would like to make comment on that? If there is, please raise your hand or go to the chat box and you will be unmuted. Having none, I see no reaction.
Mayor, go ahead and make a motion to close the public hearing. Paul?
I have a motion from Paul to close the public hearing for Kimball Furniture Group.
Second.
I have a second from Nancy. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay. Public hearing is closed.
I have a question. Do I need to speak on that now? Am I the public or was I a representative of Kimball International?
Well, yeah, you one of two. Trish, go ahead. You want to go ahead?
Can I go ahead? I apologize. I'm not used to all this, but I am Tanya Maringer with Kimball International. And I am requesting the waiver of noncompliance for Kimball Hospitality located at 16th Street and for Kimball Furniture Group located at 15th Street. So back in March, our approvals, we did receive approvals for our abatements for those two locations. We are on like year 8 of 10 for the Kimball Furniture Group and year 7 of 10 for Kimball Hospitality. So I had originally thought the returns were extended underneath the executive order for 3 months, along with our income tax returns, the state income tax returns. So I filed the returns thinking that we had that extension, and we did not. So I ended up filing those returns late. So because I filed those returns late, our abatements were gone. So that is why I am coming before you today to ask for a waiver of noncompliance so that we can get those abatements put back on. So the estimated amount of those abatements for Kimball Hospitality is going to be around $34,000. And for Kimball Furniture Group, it's around $7,000, so a total of $41,000. Are there any additional questions that I might be able to answer?
Open it up to questions. Kevin, you're on mute, Kevin.
Okay, sorry there. Do we send a notice out that it's due? Do you receive anything from us or?
No, it was all because of COVID and executive orders. So Du Bois County and none of the Indiana counties that I do file with sent out an extension.
Okay,
So just to be clear, they did not miss the filing for the city of Jasper. The filing that they missed was with the county, the actual
Yes.
return.
The county and the state.
gotcha.
And so to clarify this then, this resolution has come before us, which allows for you to now file those in the proper method, even though the deadline has passed with the county and the state.
Yes, so if
We're
I,
approving that.
Actually, they're already filed.
Okay,
yes, the returns have been filed and we received back a Form 114 stating that they were going to go with the original assessed value and not our abatement, with the abatements on there with the final assessed value. So it went with the original. And so we received the Form 114, and then we replied back with a Form 130 for the appeal. And then, so now I'm before you to ask for a waiver of noncompliance so that I can send that back to the county assessor so that we can get our abatements. It isn't going to change any of the other returns that we filed that were late. There's still going to be a late fee with those returns. We are expecting that. But I'm on the mercy of you guys to see if we can get the abatements reinstated or not.
Mayor, it looks like that we really have to hold another public hearing for Kimball
We do.
Hospitality and then move into the passing of those. So
Right,
Yeah.
right.
thanks for the
Yeah.
explanation, Tanya.
Thank you.
I think that Tanya is speaking on behalf of both. And so the thought was that the public, at least I thought that the public hearing was for both.
But it had it listed
Anybody?
down separately, sorry.
I thought they had to be separate. So I put them on the agenda as separate.
Okay.
Well, let me open up the public hearing just to make it official for Kimball Hospitality. And is there any comments from the public regarding Kimball Hospitality? Tanya, you would not have to repeat.
Okay, thank you.
Hearing no public concern, Mayor, I would go ahead and make a motion to close the public hearings for both Kimball Furniture Group and Kimball Hospitality. If we can lump those together, Renee?
That's fine.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Paul and a second by Nancy for both to close the public hearings. By vote, I guess we need to go by roll on this one. Paul, Alan, would you go ahead and do a roll vote?
Okay, John
All in
Schrader,
favor?
Are you gonna enter the, or,
There has to be a motion.
Yeah, we need to make a motion.
Right, sorry about that.
We,
Well, Paul did, and
We
did.
made a
Nancy-
motion, yeah, we need to vote on the closing of the public hearing and then we'll move on to
Yeah.
the resolution.
Oh.
yeah, this is to close the public hearing.
oh,
Okay.
sorry.
So I have a motion from Paul and a second from Nancy to close the public hearing.
Okay, John Schrader,
aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckley,
Aye.
Bill Mundy.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have resolution, but I'll deal with these one at a time though. Resolution number 2020-13. I'd like a motion to consider the resolution for one reading only.
So moved. John Schrader.
Motion from John,
I will second.
second from Kevin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
you'll need,
opposed? If there's no one opposed, we can move forward unanimously.
well, this is it needs a unanimous, so you'll need to do the roll call on this one.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, Alan.
John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckley,
Aye.
Bill Mundy.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, 7-0. All right, this time could I have a motion to have the resolution read in full or by title only?
I move that we read the resolution by title only.
Motion from
Second.
Chad,
Second.
second from Nancy. And,
All in favor?
okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. So with that, would the city attorney please read resolution 2020-13 by title only?
Resolution number 2020-13, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Jasper, Indiana, approving a waiver of noncompliance for late filed assessed valuation deduction documents of Kimball Furniture Group LLC.
Could I have a motion to pass and adopt resolution 2020-13?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Kevin,
Second.
second from Nancy. Any further discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote, I assume.
Yes.
Okay.
John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Bill Mundy.
Aye.
All right, so resolution 2020-13 has passed. The next one, as she indicated, was 2020-14. And this resolution can be considered for one reading only. The vote must be unanimous, though. Could I have a motion for one reading only?
I'll make that motion. Paul?
Okay, I have a motion from Paul.
I will second.
I have a second from Chad. Now I need a roll call vote, Alan.
John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Bill Mundy.
Aye.
Okay. So could I have a motion to have the resolution read in full or by title only?
We'll make the motion to read by title only, Mayor. Paul?
I have a motion from Paul,
I'll second that. Phil?
second from Phil. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay. Would the city attorney please read resolution 2020-14 by title only?
Resolution number 2020-14, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Jasper, Indiana, approving a waiver of noncompliance for late filed assessed valuation deduction documents of Kimball Hospitality Incorporated.
Could I have a motion to pass and adopt resolution number 2020-14?
I'll make that motion.
Kevin,
Second, John.
second from John. Any further discussion on this? Tanya, anything else? Same,
No,
it's the same explanation, correct?
yes. Thank you, guys. I really do appreciate this.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. No further discussion?
I
Roll
just want to
call.
say it's hard to believe that you're already in your 8th and 9th years of these abatements. So hopefully everything will go well next year and then pretty soon they'll be done.
Gosh, I hope.
Yeah, we all do.
Thanks for your
know.
work on those, Tanya.
Thank you.
All right, Alan, would you do a roll call vote, please?
John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Bill Mundy.
Aye.
Okay. All right, 2020-14 resolution has passed. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, guys.
Tanya, you're welcome to stay or you can exit if you want to.
All right. You guys
It's
have
a
a good
pretty
evening.
exciting meeting if you hang around, you know?
Guys have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, you
Aye.
too.
Thank you. All right, the next thing is item number 10 on the agenda is the public nuisance ordinance. This is for information only. Renee, do you want to walk us through this?
You want the real answer? I think that you all should have received a red line copy that shows the changes that have been made since the last time that that we had it in front of us. So I will say that if you look at page number, I don't have page numbers. Oh, page number 2, you'll see language that comes that has been inserted concerning exemptions from the noise regulation that coordinates with changes in the not strictly changes in the animal ordinance, but also we took the noise portion, are proposed to take the ordinance or the noise portion out of the animal ordinance. So if you recall, these two ordinances have been kind of going along simultaneously. The animal ordinance changes weighting to see what happens with the public nuisance ordinance. So the real, I'm going to say, change that was at all, for lack of a better term, controversial in the animal ordinance was what to do about the noise portion of it. And we've heard a number of comments that suggested that maybe we should not treat the animal noise in a residential area any differently, or treat the commercial animal facilities any differently than we treat residential animal issues as far as noise is concerned. So this is a response to that. So if you look under C, exemptions include those who can substantiate that animal noises are being caused by an animal that has been injured or is ill, or is being tormented or abused by someone other than the property owner. So we did not want to penalize someone who had one of those situations. Then we also added noises. It was suggested that we add noises for safety signals and warning devices, emergency vehicles and noises of that nature, and emergency work, that's such as utilities and items like that. If you continue to scroll down, then we get into.
Renee, can we go back to that noise part?
Sure.
Although I appreciate C and those noises are fine for me to be exempt, I just really feel like when we took that out of the animal ordinance, that part about noises, we really, we took all that out. And I don't know that we put that anywhere else in the public nuisance ordinance, the noise section in the animal ordinance. So I'm not real comfortable not addressing animals of any, like section 2 of the animal ordinance or the prior animal ordinance, chapter 6.04.020 regulations. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I still prefer that we keep something in. If we're taking it out of the animal ordinance regarding animal noises and things, I prefer that we put it in the public nuisance ordinance specific to animals, because it seems like we've just left that out, and we're ignoring the part that really brought us to this right now.
So just in response, that if you look at noise section 1, it speaks to noises and says including but not limited to. Number 6 is animals.
I see that.
So regardless of whether it is a business or a residence, you would look at the factors that are included in B in order to determine whether an animal complaint is in violation of the public nuisance ordinance.
So going back to the situation of the animal facility where the NICMs had those issues, under the way this is being rewritten, would they have had a leg to stand on regarding the noises that they were concerned about?
Right. So in that situation, the code enforcement or police officers would have gone to the scene and would have looked at those factors and any other factors that are relevant and determined by that analysis whether there would have been a violation. I had a long conversation with Mrs. Nykum this afternoon. She asked the same question, and I told her it's hard, but I would probably say that in review of those criteria, they probably would not have found a violation. And I can only say that based on meetings and discussions that I've had or that we had prior about that specific issue.
And we've had a lot of conversations about this. So if they would have found no violation on that, then let's just, take the NICMs out of the picture. If it was another resident in another area where it was a pet facility bordering their neighborhood or, close proximity. So it seems like no one would have a leg to stand on then if they didn't.
I don't agree with that, because I think it's unfair or it's not accurate to say just because the issue is not resolved in their favor that they don't have a leg to stand on. Because in any of those cases, what you would do is go to the site and look at the level of the noise, look at the nature, and go down that whole list of criteria. And again, any others that are relevant. Some of those might fall on one side and some of those might fall on the other side. And at the end of the day, then you have to use that information in order to determine whether what is happening is reasonable or not reasonable. So I just don't view this as a scenario under which you can say, well, if it didn't go the way that the NICMs wanted, or it doesn't go the way that whoever it is, that means that it's a bad law.
Why, this is Dave. So, I'm a little bit nervous of it too. I don't see anything changing on this, stop people complaining and with the kennels and stuff like that. So I did read in that one letter from Miss Ingalls, can't think of her first name here. And, she had some ideas in there about having certain hours that they can do it, as far as having the dogs out in the pens and, like before 7 and after 5, things like that. Can we not, put some of that type of stuff into this? To me, I'm just looking at it too, and all I see is, hey, it's just the same way it was. I don't know. But my opinion is we need a little more information in there too.
So we did have, when we started the process, we did have language like that. We had times and durations, and no one was in favor of that. So we took all that out in favor of what I'll call a reasonableness standard. And again, as I discussed this afternoon, we have to rely on the code enforcement officer and the police officers to be able to use these criteria and analyze the situation and make a determination about what's reasonable, just like they do with every other law that we have.
Are they going to stand out there and take this list and look at the first one, say the level of noise, then move on down the list and grade it from that then?
I think that's
Is
what
that
they
the
do.
plan?
I think that's what they do every time anyway.
My concern on that is that, I have high respect for the police and the code enforcement officer, but they're not living there. And so what they may be hearing or viewing at the time they show up may be nothing like what that resident is hearing the other 23 hours of the day. So that just concerns me. It's a matter of interpretation also, not necessarily hearing it the way that person is making the complaint about.
My point, or the one that I explained to someone today differently on there too, was allowing the language the way we have it written now, as I understand it, allows the police or Kenny, the code enforcement officer, to go out and to, if there's an issue, they can be handed a notice immediately. And if that issue persists, then they can come back in and then levy a fine or disciplinary action, I believe, from this point forward, instead of having to come back to Renee's office, draft a letter, send it out, wait for the mail to come, wait for them to respond. Am I correct in saying that?
That's true.
I mean, this gives them more
that's not-
real
that's not-
time.
That's not
Go ahead.
part of this ordinance. That's in our code enforcement ordinance.
But that gives us more real time to deal with the problem than it is coming in and having to go back and send out a letter, correct?
That's true.
I would prefer that the language that was in the animal ordinance that's been redlined and removed, that it be put in this public nuisance ordinance under the noise section specific to animals. So it could go under, noise number 1 and animals is 6. It could go right under that and put in there. And I, as Allison Ingalls said, I don't know that there should be any exceptions to this, because she felt like, as being a pet business, is that everyone should comply equally, whether they are a neighbor or a business or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's what I keep going back to, Nancy, is Allison's testimony. I find her testimony expert and compelling. Someone from that very from animal related industry telling us, because these noises can be controlled, they should be controlled for the benefit of the animals as well as people. That's what I go back to, and that's my hesitation. Prior, and I think that goes to our definition of reasonableness. Prior to hearing that presentation, I might have been convinced that it would be reasonable for animal businesses to have those noises. I might have, but after her testimony, I don't know that I'll come down on that side. That's kind of where I stand.
So I understood in some discussion as well that part of the reason that we removed it and put it here was that we wanted to treat noise level fairly for residences and commercial businesses. Is that correct, Renee?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That was one of the statements, that we shouldn't differentiate between them. And so one of the reasons we did this was to, all right, we treat them all the same and put it in that language. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't take the language and put it back there, but I think the rationale that we had for putting it into one location rather than in both, it was solid, it was sound rationale. But
Well, to be clear, I think that what Nancy's saying is not necessarily, and tell me if I'm wrong, not necessarily that she's upset that it's been removed from the animal ordinance, but she wants it in one place or the other.
Exactly. That's correct. And with the exemptions removed, the part that says exemptions removed, because that goes back to Allison's part about everyone should comply equally and fairly.
I don't have any problem with it being moved from the animal ordinance to the other one either, but I think I kind of agree with what Nancy's saying, that we take the exceptions out and everybody goes on their own then.
all right, so is that the direction for drafting for the final?
So that we're clear, then the language for noises in our, whether it's back in the animal ordinance or in the public nuisance ordinance, will say that it shall be unlawful for any person to own, keep, or harbor any animal which by its barking, etc., or making of any noise other than noise which by its volume or frequency unreasonably disturbs or interferes with the peace and quiet of any person or of the neighborhood. That is the I missed something. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read this cross out. It shall be unlawful for any person to own, keep, or harbor any animal which by its barking, howling, baying, squealing, crowing, crying, bleating, screeching, or making any other noise which by its volume or frequency unreasonably disturbs or interferes with the peace and quiet of any person or of the neighborhood.
You know,
That
Correct.
will be the definition.
a key word in this, you said unreasonable. I walk every morning and there's dogs that are out and they see me and they bark for a little bit. Are we saying that's not unreasonable?
That's,
I think we're reading too much into this. I mean, I like the way it got cleaned up and, it's more, it's more defined where the code enforcement officer and the police officers have a little more direction where they can enforce it a lot better than what it was previously. So, I mean, I applaud the way it's cleaned up now and see, and adding all that extra in there, I just can't see it. But that's my own opinion.
John, I think the key word is unreasonably. Those dogs barking at you, that's not unreasonable. That's reasonable to expect that of a dog barking at you when you're walking by.
Yeah, some people, it may be unreasonable though. What if somebody it lives next door to them and their dog sees a walker and they're barking, It's, I don't
John's
know.
walking at 5 o'clock in the morning too. Aren't you, John? Early?
Kevin.
Well,
Same dog doesn't bother me,
It actually goes though both ways. I mean, it's covered under the animal ordinance and it's covered in the other one too, under the, the level of noise, why it's happening and everything else. It's all in the same, both readings the way I see it.
I feel like for animal noises, the code enforcement officer and the police need to know what they're looking at. That was the whole point in, as the mayor said, in removing it, or in order to create a single standard, if you will, by which they are reviewing the situation.
But the animals is what really started this whole conversation.
I don't know if Kenny, if I see that you're on, and I suspect that this is one of the reasons that you're listening in. Do you have any comment?
Well, it's very difficult, as we all know, to enforce this. And, I'll go with what Councilman Schrader said. If he walks by and the dog barks, that's not an issue, but maybe to the neighbor next door where the dog barks at multiple people walking by, that is a problem. So it's very difficult to enforce and to come up with an ordinance for this. So yeah, I'm on here because of this nuisance ordinance, more than just animals, but it is hard. It's very difficult. And if it was simple and easy, we'd already be moved on. So as long as it's
Do you have any preference?
not necessarily, I'm fine with whatever direction, just so that we can enforce it in a timely manner.
I think the enforcing in a timely manner argument was made by Paul early on. It does give you that opportunity with this language.
Gives teeth, in my opinion, the way it's written right now, it gives them teeth to walk up and hand out a notice of violation.
Except to a kennel, or
Right.
And a kennel,
wherever it's located at.
a kennel's not going to operate out of an area that it is licensed and legal to operate in the city of Jasper at this point. We
But just
made sure
because
that for the
they
planning
be-
commission,
But just because the kennel's been given approval to
Mhm.
operate in a neighborhood business, that doesn't mean
Well,
that
they're
the
not,
neighbors will still be happy with that.
that's exactly right. And the we all know that neighbors are never going to be happy with everything that goes in all the time. We're trying to make it as easy and flexible as for the enforcement part of it as can be.
So if that happens, if a neighborhood, if someone wants to locate a kennel in a neighborhood, they would have to first go through a public hearing process
Mhm.
at the BZA. And if they get approval, then they open their business. And the next thing that happens in this scenario is we get a complaint from a neighbor. And at that point in time, if you go with the new language, the police would go out or the code enforcement would go out and look at the situation and look at these factors and make a determination of whether what is going on is in fact a violation or is not a violation. And all of those factors would be considered. Again, I keep saying this, but we can never think of everything. So there might be other factors that a code enforcement officer would find relevant that aren't listed here that could be considered. But the idea is that you can articulate why, based on these factors and the situation, why we are finding this a violation or why we are finding that this is not a violation.
So tell me a little bit more about number 12 and Title 16 of the UDO, how that falls into this.
So I'll read it. If the noise is produced by a commercial activity, whether the use is lawful under the provisions of Title 16 of the UDO, and whether the noise is one that could reasonably be expected. So that's saying, number one, if you are operating a business in a zone for which you did not get approval, that's probably not going to bode well in this analysis. If, on the other hand, you are operating a business for which you either it's a permitted use or you went through the appropriate process and got permission, then that's one of the factors that they'll be looking at, and whether it's reasonably expected from that commercial activity. I mean, that's one of the factors. Certainly not the only factor.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I don't know that we've really landed on an agreement as to what kind of direction to take on this. We seem to be split on it.
Well, really, right now, we're just reviewing still this public nuisance ordinance, and
Right.
Renee's just at C, so that's where,
But-
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, she's gonna need a direction
Right.
in order to land somewhere. We just can't skim over it.
No, you're right.
And to the extent that you all want to do further investigation and have questions or want to do your own research or whatever, I'm fine with that. But I would like, within the next 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, I would like your thoughts one way or the other, and you can send those to me. We can still discuss it at the December meeting, but I would really like to be able to provide you with, based on your comments, what is hopefully a final document in December.
Okay,
Sounds-
Okay, so any other questions or comments about noise?
No, Renee, that's very reasonable.
Okay. The next is property maintenance. And that is, gosh, that's a huge compilation of a lot of things that Kenny runs into every day. things that we get complaints about over and over and over again that we really, up to this point, haven't had any language to help either code enforcement or police. So I'm sure you don't want me to go through and read all of these, but I'm very happy to answer any questions and take comments about any of it.
I have a question for Kenny more than anything, and I've been a pain in his butt because I get so many complaints from people of things that are happening in my district, and then I go report them to Kenny. He checks them out. But what's upsetting to me is the habitual offenders. Like, he goes out and he does his job, and for about 2 days, you see a little bit of improvement, usually not even significant improvement. So when we get to a point where it just comes back, it comes back, it comes back, what can we do? What can we put in an ordinance in order to get that type of thing to stop? Kenny, I like your comment, because most of the time, it isn't all repeats for you, is it? I mean, you don't have to go back all the time to everybody.
Correct. There are a handful of annual issues that we have to deal with. And one property we have given a weed violation. We went with the follow-up violation, the third and the fourth. So there were 3 different fines that were imposed on this individual. And today the neighbor came in and complained again. This will be the 5th time this year that we've been back to the property. 4 of them were weeds, a couple of them with trash, and now we're back again for a trash issue. And how do we get that message across without just putting another violation notice on the door and possibly another fine? Because he came in and paid the $25 fine, he paid the $50, he paid the $75, and it just, we don't get any further with it. And, you know, to go back to a house 6 times in 1 year is, it's plenty.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's
Maybe
the
we need,
exception to the rule, right, Kenny? That's
Absolutely.
not the norm.
Yes, but there are a lot that we visit annually or more than 1 time a year.
There's several in my district. That's why I brought it up, Nancy.
Yeah.
There's several in my district, and Kenny could tell you off the line if you want to know who they are.
Oh, we get that report, but
And
tons in
so-
ours as well.
So some of the things that we do, in fact, do, if it's a weed violation and it doesn't get resolved, then the street department goes in and mows, and that becomes a lien on the property if it's not paid. And that's pretty steep. People aren't enjoying getting the bill for the street department mowing job. In fact, we just recently had a property that had not only weeds but trash and falling in building, and we really do try to work with property owners to get them to resolve the issues. But I think in that case, the street department finally went in and cleaned up the whole property, and I think it was something like $2,500 that's now a lien on the property because they didn't pay the invoice. So we don't want to do that if we don't have to, but those are ways that we do resolve these issues where we have property owners who just won't cooperate.
Renee, by putting more teeth into this ordinance, which is very obvious that it does, it makes things a lot more stricter. I guess to Kevin's point, how do we still keep those people from reviolating time and time and time again, even though they pay the fine, the ordinance is stricter? I don't know either.
I don't know
keep
how
those people from redoing it.
I don't know. That's, very similar to trying to figure out how we stop people from getting parking tickets. We've got people who get, 30 parking tickets a year, and they pay them. So some of that we're at a loss.
Yeah, I think when we talk about property maintenance, and the example is the one that Kevin's talking about quite a bit, it's behind the police post, and we'll go there, we'll put a violation, and he'll start the mowing process before the street department arrives. And when he gets done, it looks horrible. It's not bagged up or raked or cleaned. It still is bad, but it is cut down. So he met that minimum requirement. He does nothing with the rest of his landscape. The home looks, run down. A little elbow grease goes a long way with trying to clean this up and make it look nice, and it never will because we don't have any more teeth to enforce anything to make it look like it should, or at least
Well,
acceptable.
Yeah.
But he graduated fine. Maybe after the third time, going
We
from
do.
25 to 50 to 75,
We do.
graduating up
We
to something with some substantiation to it. If
but
somebody told me I was going to pay $75 or I was going to pay $250, I might pay a little more attention at $250.
It's 25, it's 25, 100, right? 25, 100, 500, 1,250. That's the graduation.
Holy cow. And they're paying that?
No, some of them can't go beyond, say, 500. So
Okay.
not every ordinance violation can go all the way up to 1,250. And if they violate an ordinance this year and then go the rest of the year and don't violate it again until next year, that starts the process over.
Sure, and I understand that. I'm just wondering, like you said, if you got somebody that you're going out and visiting 4 or 5 times in one single year's time, how do you get their attention?
Yeah, you're not wrong about that, except that a lot of the times, and Kenny, I may be making an assumption that's inaccurate, but a lot of the times the folks who are getting those violations don't have the money to pay that fine.
Most of the time that's
And so they
accurate.
just don't.
Yeah, most of the time it's accurate, but the one that I've talked about tonight is a manager of a local restaurant. So the financial part is not a concern.
Not always. You're right.
Correct, not always.
Yeah.
So
sometimes it's just willful obstinance and not someone who genuinely needs help.
absolutely, just yes, there's no no desire to make it look nice and to keep it clean.
And I guess there's not enough incentive for the consequence. If you commit a crime, there has to be a penalty for it. And that really makes sense to, and actually affects them so that they change their behavior. With this guy, he doesn't change his behavior. And I don't know how high have we gone up to fines with that guy? Have you been?
I think $75 was the highest fine he's paid this year.
Okay.
I think he paid
And that's not
25.
enough to get his attention.
Yeah, it's not enough to get his attention. Yep.
Well, the other thing is that we have, I guess, have to change our mindset, because for a long time since I've been here, really, we've been focused on trying to work with property owners and get them to resolve issues and comply. That mindset is, as you've all indicated, not effective or becoming less effective. So it may be that rather than warning people and trying to work with them, not that we would stop trying to work with people, but we may have to be quicker to use the option of enforcing a fine than what we used to be.
Which is what the language in this ordinance does now, correct?
Yeah.
Again, he
It
can
does.
hand out the notice
Yeah.
of violation and go back tomorrow or whatever, 7 days. Whereas before, Kenny would come to you guys would draft a letter, put it in the mail, which was 3 days away, give them
Oh, yeah.
7 days to
We're
respond. Now with a 10, we got all kinds of growth.
beyond that. We don't
Yeah.
do that.
Okay.
Kenny, quick question on there. I know you're out driving around quite a bit. This may sound bad. Do you go looking for situations like this, or do you typically have to be called in first before you're going to address it?
Normally it'll be on a complaint that comes in, but if I'm out and I see something, I'll go ahead and address it, because the residents are used to, if it's a habitual one, it's an annual one. If I'm in the neighborhood, I'm going to look at it, because you can divert some people getting angry by doing that and not waiting for them to call in and complain, because they'll tell you it's been like this for a month or 2 months. So it's better to go ahead and try to stop it. But normally, no, we don't go look for it.
Okay.
And though I will say that we, on a regular basis, in our department leader meetings, we remind people that if other departments, while they're out doing work, see violations, that they should let Kenny know so that he can go address it. So
Absolutely.
it's not just Kenny who is out finding these things.
Correct.
I just think maybe we need to maybe be a little more proactive on that end. And the only reason why I'm saying that is it would be the equivalent of having a law officer driving around and seeing somebody speed, but he's not going to pull them over unless somebody complains about the person speeding. So, Kenny, you're more than welcome to drive down my street. Hint, hint, hint.
But Phil, that could be something that we as council members do also. There's no reason why we couldn't be looking in our districts or, in our
Absolutely.
case, the whole city as councilmen at large.
I just think a lot of times, like as an example for like myself, I don't like to call Kenny on my neighbors. And then you know my point there, but I do see your point, Nancy, as well.
And I wouldn't, I mean, I don't take what Kenny said, nor just from knowing how we interact. I don't think that he drives around with blinders on.
No,
If he
no.
sees something, he'll stop. He's just not driving around with the sole purpose of finding violations.
Correct.
Personally, I think the discussion was around maybe we have to change the way we approach. Maybe we do, but I would rather work with someone to resolve an issue than to just slap a fine on them right away, I think.
Sure.
I think, Kenny, you're more successful doing that.
Yes. We always try to work with people, and, you know, if they make contact with us and say, hey, give me a couple of days, or, you know, I have an issue, we always work with them and try to let them take care of it.
I don't think we want to abandon that approach.
No, not at all.
But I do like the idea of having more timely impact with a fine if we need to.
Yeah. Well, Christy does an excellent job with setting up when the message goes out, and then a calendar notice to me so that when the timeline's gone, that I can immediately go out, you know, that day and follow up and get back with her. So
Yeah.
we both know where the issue's at and whether it's been abated or we still have concerns. So she does excellent with keeping up with that. So.
And basically what you're saying too, and Renee, you said it, Kenny's not out there just looking for particular issues, but if we've got someone that has been in violation, they're on our watch list,
Absolutely.
right? That's, if he sees it, he's going to stop.
That's right.
Not going to wait for a complaint. He's going to avoid a complaint. And I think that's appropriate as well.
Yeah, that's correct.
So can we backtrack just for a second? And I apologize. Carla Nykum has been patiently waiting, and I didn't see that we had a chat request. So if you don't mind, Carla has some comments, I suspect, back to the noise issue.
Okay. So you'll unmute her? Okay.
I think that's Lisa's job.
Okay. Lisa unmuted?
She is.
Okay. Carla,
Yes,
thank you for being patient.
not a problem. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I do appreciate it. I know, Mayor, you mentioned that the noise and the moving to the public nuisance was a direction to try and treat fairly, correct?
Yeah, I think it was something that actually you or someone had brought up at one of our meetings.
And that is what we're wanting. We're looking for treating fairly. We're not asking for no animal noise. And I hope that everyone understands that. But in our previous situation, enduring 30 barking dogs for more than an hour at times, that's not reasonable. We know that if our neighbor was doing that and someone called about it, they would be in violation. There would be no question. So how is that fair to the private citizen? We've not been unreasonable about our complaints. We have not complained about minor instances. And, you know, John, to speak to when you talk about walking and things, that happens to us as well. I mean, we totally understand. We have plenty of people in our neighborhood who have dogs. The dog's going to bark occasionally. The dog's going to do things. That's understandable. It's the excessive that is our concern. And I think that there was not a question of, was it excessive? There was even an officer that went to the meeting for downtown dogs rezoning, or not rezoning, but to be allowed to have a large kennel in their new location. And that officer attended the meeting and voiced that he was aware there was a noise problem. Correct, Paul?
Yes, we had an officer in attendance and had a business 2 doors down from where their new kennel went to. And yeah, he had some concern about noise when we talked about it.
And so when we look at that and then know that if this draft were what was in effect when we were going through this, that they would have been found not in violation, I just don't see that we can reasonably think that that is fair treatment.
Were they found in violation when they were down at the industrial site at the end of 6th Street? I don't know if they ever were.
They were found in violation of the noise under the animal ordinance.
Okay.
We're looking for to not have a repeat of the same situation. There have been 3 animal-related businesses that have opened up in the county just in the past year. And I think I've shared this with some, but you know, I looked up and 2/3 of all U.S. households have a pet. More than half of that is dogs. This is a growing industry, a lot more businesses that are to come. And I think that making sure that we set the right tone for how that is on the community is really important. I also think that it was brought up in a meeting a while back. Merringer's Plumbing old location is industrial zoning, I believe. And so if a small or medium kennel chose to go in there, they would not need any BZA approval because it's a permitted use, which means the residents around there would have zero protection under the way the draft is written with number 12.
Again, I think that mischaracterizes the draft.
Thanks, Carla, for your comments.
We also have Drew Eckert on, and he would like to comment as well.
Okay, Drew. Let's see.
Okay, can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yeah, we can, yes.
Okay, thank you, Renee. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I just in the list.
What?
The Nikums are getting heat for being the only people who are complaining about the noise. And I just wanted to let it be known that I'm in that too. I mean, just as much as they are. Carla is our spokesman, I guess, because don't want to be redundant, and she does a good job, I think. So, but anyway, I just wanted to let it be known that they're not the only ones, and you know, they're not the lone wolves in this. Pardon the pun, I guess, but I don't know. It was mentioned about walking by and this and that, and dogs barking. Would that be considered? Well, you got to consider also that this is the Riverwalk, and there are people. You know, there are several people every minute walking by. And Carla actually under, well, when she talked about, an hour plus, it goes on for several hours plus. It did. And I just want to say that, the tenant in there now, you can hear it, but it's not, doesn't rise to the level of nuisance at all, and it seems like there can be peaceful coexistence. And, this summer, for the first time in years, I've been able to sit out, my patio and everything and enjoy it. And I really needed it this year, with the COVID and everything, where you try to stay away from things. So I've really gotten out and I've enjoyed it. And, just like most people in town enjoy their yards. So I guess that's it. I just want to make sure that everybody knew that it wasn't just the Nikons who were complaining about it. So.
Well, I appreciate that, Drew. And I think what Renee had requested from council members as well is if there is language, a better way to state what we're trying to accomplish here, we'd certainly look for those suggestions. And, and we'd be open for that. So please share any suggestions and modifications in the language in the future, in the next couple of weeks, as Renee requested.
Okay, well, I'm kind of agree with what Nancy had to say, and yes, that's where I stand now. I'll think about it more, and I thank you for listening to me.
Sure, thank you. Okay, Renee, you want to pick up where we left off from the others?
Sure. So we were in the, I guess, let me look. Okay, I don't have any other chat bubbles. So we were talking about maintenance of property. I don't know if if anyone has anything specific that they want to address in that list before we get to vehicles. So I'll pause before we go to vehicles and ask if there are any specific comments about any of the other items in the list before we get to that point.
Renee, I think it's a good job that you guys did with this here. I like everything on it. So there you go.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Renee, I think earlier today, Chad had a question about the firewood having to be screened.
Yeah.
So it doesn't say in here what it would be screened with. I mean, I've seen people put tarps on their firewood, and so that, maybe a tarp looks worse than just firewood being stacked. So
right, let me go to
doesn't describe what the screen would look like.
Okay, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Nancy. So I don't know if maybe the issue there needs to be just addressing those kinds of things. I'm kind of torn about this. Those kinds of things in the front yard, as opposed to anywhere in view of the public or any neighbor. I say that, and then I think, well, I don't know. Is it fair for somebody to complain about their neighbor who has a pile of dirt or mulch or firewood or whatever it is in their backyard because they're backyard neighbors? I'm open to suggestion on that, but I would say that probably when we started talking about that, I think the biggest problem was those items in the front yard or visible to the street.
Although we've all seen people that stack firewood on their front porch.
Yeah.
Because it's a convenience for putting it in their fireplace.
Or they have a fireplace in their front. There's a couple of those as well. So this doesn't have to, or wasn't intended to be the end all of this, but those are the issues that I was thinking about as we were trying to decide what this language should look like. But to your question about what does a screen look like, I would anticipate that being some kind of landscaping or some kind of fencing material. not a tarp.
So I have a hard time regulating firewood, as some people in the city actually are using that to heat their home. It's not all just an aesthetic and a fun thing. And on the front porch, if it's below the threshold of the level, if you've got it, I guess that would be okay. But again, that's some people's only place they have to keep it dry and what they're using to heat their home with. So, now if you have a huge pile of firewood laying in the driveway because somebody came and dropped it off and you're going to stack it up in a day or two, of course, I don't have any problem with that. But feeding off of a big pile of firewood that's laying out in the front yard or front driveway, I think we would all agree that that's probably not in the best taste in there. If you want to do it in the backyard, side yard, I have no problem with that. But front, from street view, dead on the face of the house, that's where I struggle with that one. And I had a few people comment to me.
And I think that's where this started. And the problem is just trying to figure out language that distinguishes.
Yeah, I mean, I saw you said we had complaints. How many complaints did we get on firewood piles this year? Just out of curiosity. I know we had one in planning commission, but
I did.
I've had 3.
you've had 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
So, and again, I have a hard time if somebody's trying to heat their home, saying, well, you can't stack your wood here because it's not convenient for the neighbors to.
Okay, so just back to my people are grouchy statement. We even have had just very recently a complaint called in because someone had a pile of mulch in their yard.
Well,
I'm assuming they're going to do landscaping, but anyway, we're just trying to make sure we at least address all of the concerns that have been expressed to us. And if it is the case that we ultimately decide that some of these things just have to be left out because that's just too much, then that's fine. But I wanted to make sure that we addressed everything that has been mentioned.
Yep.
Okay. Is everybody okay to move on to vehicles?
Yes.
Please.
Okay.
Yep.
So we eliminated much of the language and basically are left with parking or storing of any vehicle in the front lawn or in the side lawn must be on a paved area. And it gives a list of what is included in what is a vehicle and what is included under what is considered paved. And it also puts a limitation on the amount of area in your front or side yard that can be improved for parking or storage, and that is 40%. It disallows parking of vehicles that would cause a hazard for pedestrians or vehicular traffic. And then it also speaks to semi-trailers and that they cannot be detached from a truck, tractor, and left. And the same with trailers or recreational vehicles, farm equipment, whatnot.
oh, you have a bunch down there? Yeah, because they never have it up here. Every time I go to IGA or
Somebody needs to go on mute.
Yep. So any comments or questions?
Renee, we spoke a little bit earlier about gravel driveways not being included as an acceptable surface to park a vehicle. I know there are several, it's not the norm for new construction, but there are several homes in town well within city limits who have gravel driveways. And, as long as it's maintained, I personally don't see a problem with that.
And that was, you can see, I think on your copies, you'll see that there was the word dustless surface and that was crossed out. So that was crossed out in while we were debating gravel or no gravel, gravel or no gravel. So again, that's a decision for you all to make. And I'm open to whatever that decision is, but we need to decide.
Tell us where that is again. I'm trying to find that.
That is number 7 is vehicles, and then letters A and B and C underneath number 7 speak to what is included as a vehicle and what is included as a paved surface and the surface area.
Okay.
So what you're saying, Renee, is you would entertain including a rocked surface, if that's what the council would like to do.
So the reason that we have paved surface is because we've gotten complaints about rocked areas where people are parking, or people rocking areas in their yard and using that for parking. It certainly is a bigger deterrent for parking in your front yard if you have to provide a paved surface as opposed to providing a gravel surface. But you are also correct. There are plenty of homes out there that have gravel driveways, and people who have improved an area for parking, a camper or a boat or whatnot, and they keep it maintained very well, and it's gravel. And their neighbors have no complaints about that use. So that's just going to be, it's a hard decision, but that's the decision that has to be made.
We have 4 gravel driveways on the block I live on here. It doesn't cause us any. One of them happens to be ours on a rental home that we have. We did not put gravel down. We put down millings, which once you get those in and drive across them and pack through, provide zero dust on it. But that's right here in the heart of the corner of 15th and Leopold. You're welcome to drive up between 15th and 16th Street. You can see them in there all the time. So
For that
We have a
matter,
rental property too that has a gravel or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, parking area.
and there's a lot of those up and down through the 5th district for sure.
we also have some alleyways that are still gravel.
Mhm.
Not that you would be parking there, but
I think most of the complaints I've gotten have been people parking in their front yard, in their grass. I mean, I don't have a problem with, again, gravel or whatever going up a driveway or, around there or something like that, but parking it in the front yard on gravel still doesn't, I don't think that's right either there.
So that's the issue. It's not really the driveway being gravelled that would necessarily have been an issue.
Yeah.
But how do you describe it and how do you differentiate? Because what you're saying is, I'm fine with somebody having a gravel driveway and parking on their gravel driveway, but I don't want them to now
Parking in the
create
grass.
a gravel parking area in addition to their gravel driveway.
Yeah.
I mean,
So Dave's right. What we have is residents that they have street parking. They just choose to save a few steps and just pull in their front yard. And you'll have 4 or more vehicles parking in their yard. And the rest of the neighbors are, of course, are not used to this. And they're calling, they're upset. And it's like, why does Jasper allow this? And so on and so forth. So completely right with that concern. And then when it rains, they still do the same thing. And they track through their yard and they don't care.
They
So-
have ruts and everything else in there. It's, it's not very nice looking. That's for
Yeah. And,
the
and
ones
the
I've seen anyways.
Kenny,
only issue we have now is waiting until they drag enough mud on the street that we can send Chad Mundy out to put a sticker on the door and saying, now you're dragging mud on the street. So
Kenny, would those people be upset if that same neighbor, instead of parking in the grass in their front yard, put gravel in their front yard and parked on that?
absolutely, I think that would be a bigger concern. And there again, your 40% area would probably come into play as well there when you start to do that. So yeah, I think they would just rather see them park on the street or park in your driveway where there is ample room, and they choose not to do that. So how do we do that? And then also in many, many areas, there are people who have their travel trailer in their park next to their house or in the yard, or they've even went and made a nice area to park it, and they put rock there so they don't have to trim underneath it and keep it nice, or move their trailer to mow and so forth. So we will see a lot of concern, I think, with this, with it not being on a paved or concrete surface. There are a lot of vehicles out there, trailers, boats, campers, so forth.
Now, let me also say this. Don't get the wrong idea. And I hope I've said this several times today, so I hope I'm not repeating myself to the whole group. You may have something, a vehicle that is parked after this whatever the language is that passes, that is parked, that is not a public nuisance, but it still may be a violation of our UDO. Just because you're not violating the public nuisance ordinance does not mean that you are not violating the UDO. So for example, let's use the language that we have and say that it requires a paved surface. And so someone paves an area to the side of their garage for purpose of storing their camper trailer. And now they are no longer in violation of the public nuisance ordinance because they're parking their camper trailer on a paved surface. However, the UDO does not allow you to store a camper trailer in somewhere other than a covered structure. So you're still in violation of zoning, but you're not going to get us cited for a public nuisance violation. And so we want those to be consistent. We don't want them to directly conflict, but I just want you to know and not be surprised if at the end of the day you find that something, now that we've gone through this whole process to determine what is a public nuisance, if you have somebody contact you and say, well, it's not listed on here, how can it be a violation? Well, that's how.
Maybe that part of the UDO needs to be looked at also.
It will be.
Seems like there are a lot of campers or whatever parked around that are in violation.
And so I felt like it was necessary to get this complete and passed before we can then go to the UDO and try to make sure that those things are not in conflict with one another.
So from my understanding, in a residential neighborhood, according to the UDO, you may not store a trailer, camper, boat, those types of things, unless it's under structure.
I think that's true.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure I understand, that portion of it, according to the UDO.
How long has
We've
it
got
been
a lot of
like that?
violators in our community.
Yeah, those are all over the place there. That's going to be a tough thing to haul on there.
Well, and so that you know, every year we go through the process of tweaking the UDO, and this may be a time for us to look at that language.
Yeah, that will have to be changed.
And I think if
we need to
you
be friendly.
change it,
We need to
Go
be
ahead,
friendly
Nancy.
to our residents also, and they're already doing those things. We can't. Anyway, I think we need to look at the needs of the residents.
I feel like for every issue like this that we come across, there are people on each side, which is why this is such a big task.
Okay.
We park a 6x12 trailer off the street on an area where an old garage was that got torn down. Has a rock base underneath it yet. We just keep it there and have for years, right at our house. In there.
Kenny, you want to go issue that fine tomorrow?
Yeah, that's right. You know where it is, 522 East 15th Street.
I'll be there tonight.
That's fine.
No kidding.
We'll move it around back.
Well, it just shows you how complex this is, and
Sure.
trying to balance this and come up with something that the citizens of Jasper understand and can easily comply with.
I think we also want to be reasonable with this.
Yeah.
I agree 100% with not parking cars in the front yard, and that just looks terrible. But I mean, we've got a lot of campers around where they have it on a concrete area and it's not covered over the top. And I just find it hard to think that that's not acceptable.
And
I
that-
agree with that.
It sounds like there's pretty consistent thoughts about that. So I can try to change that language and consistent with
Renee.
what I'm hearing.
So Kevin, you're suggesting then that the important part should say that people shouldn't park in the grass in their front yards,
Well,
however that can be said.
Yeah.
Me too.
Other than a driveway, an improved
Right.
driveway.
Right.
Well, I've seen a lot of people that have campers. They'll put like on the side of their garage, or they'll add an extra lane next to their garage so that they can set it there, and it's not hurting anything. And I don't want to see them lose all that.
It's convenient to outfit it to go for the weekend and be able to back up and hook up on a Thursday night and roll out.
Yeah.
Renee, the
I
part
agree.
about the concrete on C, 7C, that has a red line. And it just says there that can't be part of the 40%, but maybe it could be said that concrete runners are appropriate or can be used as another alternative. Or maybe we don't need to get that specific and call out what can or cannot be used.
Yeah, I guess the idea there is, do you want to allow runners or do you want it to be a solid surface? And I don't know if Kenny has any thoughts about that, just from a maintenance perspective.
Yeah.
So if somebody parks their trailer on runners, but the weeds are growing up in between and they're not mowing it, that's the issue.
Right. There's only one property that I think we're aware of with concrete runners. That's actually probably on 41st Street, but and it's well maintained. But that's the concern, is to maintain the property under it or around it, so that's maintained. That's the concern.
Well, if we're not having violations of that with concrete runners, people are maintaining it. I would be in favor of not being too restrictive until there's a need to really tighten it down. The discussion I've heard, I kind of agree. Not in the front yard is the main thing.
And not in the grass.
Right. I guess that's what I was pertaining to. When I say yard, that's my lawn. Okay, I should say.
I get you.
Okay. So is that what I was hearing from everybody? Is that the kind of the direction you want her to go with this?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing, and it sounds to me like we need to definitely revisit that on the
UDO.
planning board side as well for the UDO and the BZA, so we can get some of that language tidied up. Yep.
There's one other issue as it pertains to driveways. It's the 40% rule. I would suggest that might be reasonable for any new construction, but the current language says existing, which includes existing driveways. I'm not sure that that's a reasonable burden to be placing on property owners if they're already exceeding that 40%.
I don't know. Could you say they're grandfathered in then?
I would recommend that.
You're right. In the area like where we live and where you live, Chad and
Yeah.
Paul, it's quite a bit different. The properties aren't even that large, and
Right.
already the driveway might already take up 40% or something of the
That's
yard.
exactly right. I'm certain my driveway does.
Mhm.
Well, I think the purpose in, I think in the purpose in putting that language in was more dealing with the idea that someone would put in addition to their driveway, they would basically take their front yard and make it into a parking area with gravel, likely with gravel or some other surface. Maybe we can just take that percentage out in its entirety, since we're now focusing on the fact that we don't want parking in the front yard. So just by the very nature of change, it may not be necessary, because now you're talking about really allowing people to park on their driveway or some adjacent, I don't know what you'd call it, but an adjacent offshoot that is installed specifically for this purpose.
Well, my head goes around to the Portersville Road, to the new construction that's beyond 41st Street out there, where they actually have turnarounds built in, or the driveway's built in the shape of a T to the garage so they can back and turn around, so they're not backing onto the Portersville Road. Some of those may be getting pretty close, some of those small lots in Winsong.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the reality of not wanting them to back into a busy thoroughfare on there. And that 40% might get pretty close for a 2-car garage with a 2-car backing area.
Okay, so if I can draft the language in such a way that is specifically allowing what we've just talked about, does anybody have an objection to me eliminating that 40% limitation?
I don't.
Nope.
Okay.
All right, you want to go to the next area?
So the next, I guess we could do the last two. There were no changes to the language regarding light and odor. There was one change, and I added that because somebody brought it to my attention that we do in fact have some areas in the city that still have crops on them. And so what about if the owner or renter of those properties wants to apply manure? So I'm open to suggestions.
It's a reasonable request. And from the ag side of things, the manure smell is typically in and gone in 48 hours when it's applied. It typically doesn't stick around much longer than that for ag purposes. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want to get a manure business started in the middle of downtown Jasper, but for the ag areas on there, to inhibit our farmers from going out and spreading turkey manure, hog manure, or whatever, I don't see that we can prohibit them from doing so.
What about gardens?
Again, if you're putting enough manure on your garden to cause the neighbors more than 48 hours a problem, you probably put a little too much on.
Too much.
Yeah.
So and those comments are not exactly consistent, and that's fine. I just wanted to get something in here so that we wouldn't overlook it. This suggests that it would be only applicable if the manure is being spread in an ag zone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that there are likely some properties in the city limits that have crops on them but are not zoned
Sure.
ag. So that would be in a residentially zoned area. And I guess I'd need to know how you feel about that. If you want to say in any area, or
Why don't you list it as active farmland, active crop ground in there, fields or farms that are absolutely being utilized as farm agricultural purposes only. So the Bachman property I'm thinking of right over here on Mill Street, which is probably not ag. And I don't know what that one is. The Burger Farm over behind Precious Blood area back in there. That's probably still not ag, but
So just the word operating farm period wouldn't be enough? You think it needs to be called something different than an operating farm?
I think
Well,
operating
it
farm
says
probably.
operating farm located in an agriculturally zoned area.
Well, I
I
see
think-
that, but to Paul's point, probably some of those that are an operating farm are not in an ag zone.
Yeah, I think if you took ag zone out of operating farm ground, you would be fine.
What about gardens? Somebody said that.
The mayor said that. And again, to put enough manure on a garden to consciously bother neighbors for days that's not usually feasible. I would think we would get more complaints from our own wastewater treatment facility and the wonderful aroma that wafts through the south side of Jasper on occasion than we would from people being worried about putting a little cow manure or pig manure or chicken manure on their garden.
Okay, all right, you guys, everybody good with that?
Okay.
Yes.
I'm
All
good.
right, is there anything else along that information only? Or, no, this was,
That's right.
that was information only.
Yeah, and truthfully, the animal ordinance was intended to be information only as well. I think it's listed on there for action, but until we come up with final language on the public nuisance ordinance, I don't think that you're probably in a position to decide what you want to do with the animal ordinance.
I think that's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to the appropriations, item number 12 on the agenda. And that's a public hearing for the additional appropriation for 2020. It was published in the Herald on November 6th of 2020. So I'd open up the public hearing. Are there any comments? Alan, you want to speak to it?
Yeah. On this additional appropriation that we've got is $168,000 for the police department. That's for the dispatch console. It's going to be less than that, but we put that in there because it had a 3-year warranty on it. So we wanted to bump that up just to make sure in case they decide to go with the 3-year warranty. I don't know if they're going to do that yet at this point. For City Hall, we've got equipment for $75,000. That's the technology for the conference rooms and the chambers to upgrade those. And the engineering department, we've got contractual services for $48,000 in that, and that's for the GIS upgrade. They're looking at right now. They're kind of going through it just to see what's kind of out there. But it's a little bit higher than what it would normally be, but we put enough in there just to make sure we've got enough. And the common council for equipment, we've got $20,000, and that's for laptops for you guys to use. That we're looking at getting those. I don't know if it'd be $20,000 or not, but that's the number we put in there just in case. All right, so that gives us a total general fund additions of $311,000.
Okay, so this is ordinance number 2020-35. Is it, if there's no comments from the public?
I'll go ahead and make a
close
motion
the
to,
public hearing?
Paul, make a motion to close the public hearing.
Nancy, I'll second that.
Yeah. Paul and Nancy, all in favor of closing the public hearing, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. So ordinance number 2020-35 is an ordinance that can be considered for one reading only. Could I have a motion to do the ordinance for one reading only, please?
I'll make that motion. But Dave made it.
I
I'll
got
second
Dave
it.
and I got Kevin.
I'll second it.
Okay, and because it has to be unanimous, we have to have a roll call vote on this. So Alan, would you do the roll call?
John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Okay, could I have a motion to have the ordinance read in full or by title only?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to read by title only. Paul?
I have
I
a
will
motion
second.
From Paul and a second by Chad. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, would the city attorney please read ordinance number 2020-35 by title only?
Ordinance number 2020-35, an ordinance appropriating additional money for the city of Jasper, Indiana for the remainder of the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020.
Could I have a motion to pass and adopt ordinance number 2020-35?
I'll make that motion.
I'm
Dave?
gonna give this one to Kevin, and then
Okay.
Dave, you the second.
That's fine.
All right. Any further discussion on this? If not, all in favor, we'll have to have a roll call vote on this as well. So if you would,
Okay.
Alan?
John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Okay, so ordinance number 2020-35 has passed. All right, the next one is ordinance number 2020-36. It's an ordinance to transfer the appropriations for the city of Jasper for the remainder of the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020. Do you want to explain this a little bit, Alan, or?
Yeah, this is just, each department took money from whichever fund they had more money in and put it in one where they thought they might be close to being a negative balance. We got to have positive balances on all of our accounts. So it's just moving money around inside each department. And that's it.
So it's within the department's staying within their budget, but they're just moving money from one fund to the other in order to balance. Okay, could I have a motion to consider ordinance for one reading only?
I'll make that motion. Nancy?
Nancy,
Second.
second from John. I have the roll call vote, please.
John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Okay. Could I have a motion to have the ordinance read in full or by title only?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to be read by title only, please. Paul?
Okay,
I'll second.
second to Kevin. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, would the city attorney please read ordinance 2020-36 by title only?
Ordinance number 2020-36, an ordinance to transfer appropriations for the city of Jasper, Indiana for the remainder of the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020.
Okay, could I have a motion to pass and adopt ordinance number 2020-36?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Nancy.
I'll second.
I got Paul for a second.
Fine.
All right, any further discussion on this? If none, we need a vote. Roll call, please.
John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Okay, ordinance number 2020-36 has been passed.
It looks like them need signatures, so is that gonna be at Karen's desk or anything?
Alan is going to work tomorrow on sending these out to you guys for a electronic signature.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks for asking that, John. We need to bring that up. Okay, the next one is resolution number 2020-12. It's a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Jasper approving a resolution regarding the sale of industrial recovery tax credits and other matters related thereto. Renee, before we get into this, would you like to just give it a little explanation?
Sure. So, as you all know, part of the financing for the cultural center involved the use of industrial recovery tax credits, or DINO tax credits. And so during the process of the transaction, we identified a purchaser of those tax credits and then went forward with the that transaction. So that amounted to about a little over $3.4 million in tax credits that the project was awarded, and which were sold to Monarch for about 83 cents on the dollar. Over the past summer, the Indiana legislature chose to broaden the opportunity for the use of those tax credits by allowing for the direct sale of the tax credits rather than having to use a lease assignment method. So this means that Monarch, now that they have those tax credits, can actually sell them. And in order to process that change, which they believe is favorable to them, we needed to change the language in our original documents so that it provides for them to be able to take advantage of this new legislative language. So the resolution in front of you approves the changes to the original documents that were involved in that transaction. So it really does not amount to any substantive change for the city as far as the tax credits are concerned. It just allows more flexibility to Monarch as the tax credit purchaser.
Renee, I have a question. I thought when we talked about this, we had anticipated selling them at a higher price than 83 cents. It was I thought in the mid 90s.
Well, when we first started that conversation, we were hoping to be able to sell them locally. And we were hoping that if we were able to do that, we would actually get 100% dollar for dollar. But it didn't turn out that way. We were not able to take it. None of our local industry or banking entities were able to take advantage of that value. So we had to go elsewhere, and that's what it turned out to be. We actually, as it turns out, ended up with, as I said, 83 cents on the dollar. At one point, it was looking like it was going to be more like 79 cents. So when we ended up on 83 cents, we were happier than what we might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, thanks for the explanation, Renee.
Sure.
I would need a motion to consider the resolution for one reading only.
I'll make that motion. Go ahead,
I
I'm
have a
sorry.
motion from Paul,
Second.
a second from Nancy. And I would need a roll call vote on this.
John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lorite,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Okay. Could I have a motion to have the resolution read in full or by title only?
I move that we read the resolution by title only.
I have a motion from Chad for title only.
I'll second.
I have a second from Dave. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Will the city attorney please read resolution 2020-12 by title only?
Resolution number 2020-12, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Jasper, Indiana, approving a resolution regarding the sale of industrial recovery tax credits and other matters related thereto.
Could I have a motion to pass and adopt resolution 2020-12?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Dave.
Second.
I have a second from John. Any further discussion on this? Kevin, I will say you had a good question there. With regard to the amount that we sold it for, that was what was then built into the budget for the project, because we did know that amount as we went into the project.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify in the roll call vote.
John Trader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the gas contractor's license. And I think you all got a copy of this from Ronald Lindsay Jr.
We did. I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the gas contractor's license for Ronald Lindsay Jr.
And I'll
There's no
second
date
it.
on it, so.
I have a motion from Nancy and a second by Kevin. Any discussion on it? He scored well.
He did.
Okay, no discussion. All in favor? I guess we have to do a roll call vote on this.
Okay. John Trader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Lindsay has been approved. Any other things need to come before the council?
I have one.
Okay,
Happy Thanksgiving.
I will
Thanks,
go.
Renee.
all right. All right, with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
All right, Dave.
I'll second.
Second from Kevin. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Have a good evening.